If you are applying for an Australian work permit visa and if you think it is expensive and also it's consuming more time comparing Canada and UK, and if you want to know whether it is worth it, that's what we're going to check in this particular video. Let's find out why it is expensive. Comparatively, when you apply for an Australian work permit visa, the entire process will cost you something close to $8,000 to $12,000. Depends whether you are applying directly to an employer or you're going through any of the recruiting firm in Australia to assist you to find an employer. One of the main reasons there's an expensive process for Australia is a skill assessment. As you are aware, the skill assessment is a mandatory process. Australian government insists you have to either to get a successful skill assessment or you have to get the successful registration in one of the professional body related to your skill or the profession, and this time consuming and cost consuming. You may think whether can I bypass this particular process. Unfortunately, you won't be able to do this as this is a mandatory requirement. But in one way, I find the skill assessment also give you a better understanding what the Australian industry requirements are and make you to be better prepared and equipped when you go and start working in the industry. And another major reason for the cost escalation is the cost of visa application itself. The visa application vary from $1,450 and goes all the way up to $3,000, depends on the level of trade you are applying for. The third main reason the Australian process is getting expensive is the visas are filed by the registration migration agents in Australia, and their fee has to be covered by the candidate, that is you. That way, it's vary from $2,000 and going all the way to $3,500, depends on the employer, depends on the migration lawyer you are referring to. But the good thing about is you don't need to pay all this as one go before starting the process, because you go through the entire process on stage by stage and step by step. So you will be knowing very transparently where you are standing so that you pay one step at a time. So that means if you're stuck in one step, you don't pay anything further. So you don't look at the whole budget as your lump sum expense from day one. You pay step by step to different authorities and different professionals and different part of the process. Many of you thinking whether can you apply for the Australian work permit visa without the English requirements. Unfortunately, for many countries, the English requirement is mandatory, though the requirement level is much lesser than comparing other visas, but still you need to go through any of the recognized English language testing programs. It could be from IELTS to PTE or TOEFL, depends whichever you feel comfortable. You have the freedom to choose which one you can write and get the required score. Especially when you're coming from certain country and you're holding certain country passports, you are exempted from the English requirements. And sometimes many of you thinking whether you can get the job offer and then apply for skill assessment. It is possible, but however, if you don't have any connections in Australia, many of the employer wants to interview candidates who are job ready. The job ready definition is when you have the successful skill assessment outcome as well as the required English you are satisfied. Then the employer's options are much higher for you, and many employers are willing to look at your resume and set up an interview. Many of you are thinking whether you are able to make the payment of the process cost after getting visa. Unfortunately, there is no option. The reason being is, as I explained earlier, you will be paying many of this cost directly to the concerned authorities or the professionals at the different part of the process. That means you will not be paying as a lump sum, you'll be paying stage by stage, so you know exactly where you're standing. That way, this process is much quicker and also much more transparent comparing other countries. And sometimes many of you thinking whether your cost of process can be invested by your employer and then later on you can compensate. Unfortunately, as per the rule, there is no provision for such arrangements. However, the government stipulates certain cost of the process has to be borne by the employer, and those costs, the fees will be borne by the employer. For example, your nomination fee, your application fee, those things can be given, but the lawyer fee and the skill assessment is entirely the responsibility for the candidate. But still, you should be able to talk to your employer, and if you can mutually come to an agreement whether this cost can be given to you as part of the arrangement, still you can do that, but this should be outside your employment agreement. Hope this particular video clarifies some of your common queries of the cost of the process as well as the duration of the process, and I hope this video has given you the right information, and I look forward to see you for another video and clarifying your queries which is in your mind for a very long time. See you soon.